So let's look at the picture on the screen right now. It's something I've done with a coaching program a few months ago, and I realized I might as well implement the same sort of techniques in my YouTube videos, so they might give you a better understanding of what I'm talking about through symbolism, through actual pictures, or at least trying to convey through a picture what I'm talking about. Alright, so sometimes I ask the question, who am I, or who was I before I came into the body? Well, if you look at the screen right now and you see these lines with arrows that are going up. In between of those lines there are a few words. Let's go over them one by one. Before I came into this body, before I was essentially unconscious. Yet I was alive, I existed, but I was not aware of my own existence. Then, as we go into the body, as this life starts, as you are born, that right there, you can see it with the baby. They are conscious, but there's no actual activity of consciousness in the way that we see it with adults. So they are looking at the world, but they don't understand the world. It's like opening your eyes for the very first time, not realizing what you're seeing, so you can't describe it, you can't even talk about it because words hasn't developed yet. That is a baby. And you might also say it's animals, because a lot of animals are not self-conscious. That's the next stage. Now that is where humanity lives. We live in a self-conscious state. You are aware of yourself. You are aware that you exist. Is there something beyond that self-consciousness of ours? Because it's the self-consciousness of ours that focuses us completely on this world and everything that is in it, and we get hypnotized by it, because we're hypnotized by the very presence of ourselves. Yes, there's something above it. It's called divine consciousness, for lack of a better word. Above it is full awareness of states and their corresponding worlds. And then above that is one is all is one. You could call that the state of God itself, as they call it in religion at least. Maybe you don't like the term. Well, you can call it the creator of the universe. You can call it the one substance, whatever you want to call it. You can call it Brahman. It doesn't really matter. But what's important is that these states do exist. Divine consciousness. You might wonder, well, what does divine even mean? It actually is all tied to what you think it means. What happens is, from a self-conscious state, you discover that you can actually build higher and bigger states of consciousness within your own mind, and that actually transforms you from within. You might not believe it again, because if you look in the mirror, your physical body stays pretty similar, in this lifetime at least. But your consciousness starts to evolve. It's like a mental evolution that takes place. Now above divine consciousness, and divine consciousness, you could describe it as imaginary consciousness. It's where your self-consciousness enters into imaginary states. That's awareness that develops them. Full awareness of states. Because whether you feel good or bad, they are states of the mind. I'm not talking about physical states like you see in America. I'm talking about emotional states through which you can go. And it says there, and their corresponding worlds. In other words, if I dwell in a negative state, my world will become negative. If I go to sleep at night, I will have nightmares. Yet here I am, dwelling in lovely states of awareness for myself. I dwell on beautiful states that I determine myself, and then I see corresponding worlds within my own mind if I go to sleep, but I also see my physical life taken on a better meaning, a better form, so to speak. Like the results are improving. They're not stuck in the old me where I was still, for example, drinking a lot of alcohol and using drugs and being stuck in a weird cycle of madness. This was just a state that I had left behind. Now there's other people that are still in that state, for example, but if we're only operating from a self-conscious state, we are unaware of what is beyond what we are observing right now with the senses. This you're called upon to do with your mind. That is why you were given a mind to do just that. But you'll realize some people, they stay in a self-conscious state from the moment they are born until the moment they die. This is why the concept of reincarnation was also created. And it wasn't created in the sense that, oh, it might happen or it might not happen. It will happen. Because if you drop right now and you're still in a self-conscious state, you go back to the unconscious states of the mind. In other words, you might actually see stuff, but you might not be able to describe what you're seeing. It's like going to sleep at night and not being able to recall your dreams even though you dreamt. That is sort of what it's like going through the door of death, I should say. So what do you want to realize here? Well, what I'm talking about is becoming aware of divine consciousness, which is imaginary consciousness, meaning being aware of the fact that within your consciousness itself is an aspect that can go beyond anything that it sees and can build even greater things inside of that realm and then bring these things out into being in the world of time and space. So in a way you could also see the physical world as the lowest plane of existence, and we go up a ladder, so to speak, towards bigger and bigger levels of awareness of who we are and what we're capable of doing. Because there's a great freedom in realizing that negative states and positive states are simply states through which you can pass yourself. You are not the state itself. So you see a murderer, but he's not actually a murderer, he's just in the state of being a murderer. But he can fall out of that state. For example, if you give him the death penalty, he will fall out of the state of being a murderer. Now people would love him to burn in hell in many cases. Sadly, it's not going to happen. But it's a good thing as well, because that means you won't burn in hell either, no matter what you do. Now that doesn't mean you should go out and do crazy things to other people just because you won't burn in hell. Now the only hell you will ever experience is the one you have created. But only divine consciousness will show you that you are the creator of both heaven and hell, because they exist within. It was told us in the past, in scriptures for example, the kingdom of heaven lies within. And I briefly touch on that throughout the rest of this lecture. But this is pretty interesting, at least to me. You might want to make like a screenshot or something of these states of consciousness and ask yourself, where do I actually function from? Am I just conscious itself? Well, you are not. As a baby we were just consciousness itself, not responding, not reacting, kind of not understanding anything of what was going on. Our bodily impulses would just take over, start crying and stuff to get attention. Well, then you become self-conscious, and that state right there, self-consciousness, is where the majority of humanity lives, and a few will only rise above it and reach those higher realms of consciousness that actually exist. But they are beyond time and space. But you can do it. The fact that you can do it is proof that it is real. But this is the difficulty. I said it in a previous video. The difficulty lies in actually believing that these other states of consciousness and awareness that you can build and create in your mind are actually realities. But if you can believe it, if you can trust in it, well then everything will unfold to higher and higher realms of being. Now let's get into today's lecture. It is about entering your dream, and I hope you find it useful. It might be very metaphysical again, but don't forget they all are aiming at helping you, or at least trying to help you see how you can improve your own life just the way you want it to become, by using your own consciousness, by using your imagination. I can enter into a relationship with the number of people I want to be a witness to what I'm doing, mentally and emotionally. Here I'm telling you this does not come to pass because it was already present in my physical world. It came to pass because I go beyond the physical appearance of what I wanted. Sometimes in the so-called dream world I give the same lectures to other people there. So it is my imaginary state and the expression of what came out of that state that has called you onto me to be a witness to what I'm doing. And you can do the same in your own world and your own goals in life. Now if we change the imaginary state from which we operate, we will notice the circumstances and people within our world start to change. Have people hurt you? Then enter into the imaginary state of being loved and of loving others, and the right people who will love you for who you are will come into your life. Your reasoning mind might not know where these people are or where they will come from, but your imaginary state will make it so. Learn to trust in it entirely with no exceptions at all. If this is difficult, keep practicing the art of imagining, for it is the only way out of the maze of madness we might find ourselves in at times. Now ask yourself, why does this work? For only by figuring out why it works will you know how it works. Yet sometimes I tell people you don't want to focus too much on why something works and how it works, because it might bring you into a never-ending rabbit hole of crazy concepts. So we have to be both smart about this and sort of careful about it as well, because there are aspects of this life, of this existence, that we just cannot grasp from a human point of view. Now the ancient Upanishads said the following: "He who sees himself in all beings, and all beings in him, attains the highest Brahman, not by any other means." Now Brahman is described as the creative principle of the universe. You could say the spirit of the universe, or in other religions they would call it God. Now have you achieved that state of awareness? If we are honest, we will realize it is quite difficult to achieve that state of consciousness permanently. And let me try and explain to you how that state of awareness feels when I mentally touched it. It feels greater than anything you ever felt throughout your earthly lifetime. This is another way of saying, so great, so blissful, so wonderful, so magnificent is this state of consciousness that no earthly activity can ever compare to that awareness, and you become determined to melt and become one with it, making it your permanent home. Now, who is Brahman? Who is this God of the universe? It is your imagination itself. It is literally your imaginary self that is the one sleeping man called their God. They seek God, they want to be with Him, they want to serve Him. He never left, for He's your own wonderful human imagination itself. That is the invisible spirit of the universe in creative action, and you are both the witness of what it is doing and the one wielding the power to direct it. Now, believing yourself to be what your parents named you and what society says you are, you have forgotten this invisible aspect of your own being, but forever and ever it will tempt you to look at it. He reveals Himself in your dreams, taken on many forms, again showing that the domain of imagination is the Garden of Eden, the kingdom of heaven, from which humanity fell in order to rise up and achieve awakened awareness of who they were and what they really are. The universe is going on for infinity. There's an infinite realm of worlds within worlds, and all of them are entered through the domain of imagination itself. Let us turn back to why this works and how it works. That knowledge puts you in a position to actually make it meaningful. Ultimately, your dreams, no matter what they are meant to awaken you. So if your dream is wealth, success, starting a family, health, whatever it actually is, it's all meant to guide you back to the ultimate awareness, the source behind all of creation, your own wonderful imagination. Now, there's a big difference between your imagination when the body is awake and when the body is asleep. If my body is asleep, I can instantly fulfill anything I desire. It shows and manifests in front of my very eyes, and I can enjoy it. But awake in the body, I'm aware I'm operating in a dimension of time and space. The key word is time. It takes time for imagination to manifest itself on earth. So this is why we should get rid of being impatient. Instead, we want to be aware of the essence behind all appearances, so the need for patience vanishes altogether. For I have touched the source of the universe itself, and once you touch it by using your imagination, you will not feel impatient at all. And why is that? Because there is no difference between the physical realization and the imaginary experience. The same happiness and fulfillment flow out of your consciousness, but it is our identification with physical objects and circumstances that cause us to be impatient, for somewhere we still believe we need the physical result to feel happy and fulfilled. And there lies the great chains of bondage that will keep your consciousness bound to this realm until you break free from them. Well, I can see myself in all beings, and all beings in myself through the domain of imagination. That is the realm hidden behind the veil of our earthly lives. If from experience you can finally say, yes, I remember I imagined achieving this goal, and now here it is. I can share it with my friends and family. If you can remember it, then you grasp why this works. The next step is to figure out how it works, so you can keep repeating it. For many people achieve great success and indeed lose their souls. They don't even grasp it was their imagination all along that made it happen. So we have to become aware and conscious of how this power works. We do it by deliberately imagining the most beautiful things we are capable of imagining, and letting ourselves become possessed by these wonderful visions of the mind, so that they start to find expression within our lives while we are not losing our awareness of what is actually occurring. Then you know how it happened. And if you find yourself facing bad times in life, by that knowledge based on actual experience, you can set yourself free over and over again from all obstacles you face. For a long time I felt like I was going insane as I studied my mind. It used to be another reason for me to drink alcohol like crazy, for I almost felt disturbed to see how this world operates in comparison to the glory that is shown to me. But then came the words, you are not going insane, you are not losing your mind, you are finding your mind. That is comparable to saying, if I don't find my mind, in reality I am insane. But if I'm in the act of finding it and discovering its sheer power that is out of this world, from an earthly standard it might seem insane, but in reality it is totally sane. It is insanity to give over your power to physical objects and circumstances. Think about it. Once you realize the power of your imagination, you will never do it, because you know it would simply be insane to do so. Yet we are doing it from the moment we are born, and now our dreams are whispered into our minds in the hopes we actually realize they originated from within, and simply showed up in the outside world as a reflection from some deeper realm of this universe. This deeper realm being the kingdom of imagination. So I can imagine a golden lotus, a flower blooms in the depths of my consciousness, and yet you can't see it. But I can feel it bloom within my awareness, and it is lovely beyond any earthly creation. And then the elements of this golden lotus start to overflow outwardly into my world, by my desire and willingness to help humanity find the truth of their being. So I'm not hiding anything from you concerning the power of your own consciousness. I keep the flower blooming for all of eternity. Now you don't have to imagine a flower. This is all symbolism that ties into what I just said earlier. We have to deliberately imagine the most wonderful things we can and let them become alive within us, by our sheer acceptance of their existence within us. And then you will always know the stuff will change around. You act differently. Your friends or family might say, "Something seems different about you." They are not aware that what changed was the state from which your imaginary self is operating. If you are used to imagining you are not liked, not loved, etc., change it all around into something wonderful, and then fall in love with that imaginary state. Love it like it was your dearest child, and may I tell you, that form of love is so intense that you find yourself unable to truly condemn or hate others any longer, for that is how you grasp the fact that everyone is perfect in their own way, even if their way of living is negative at first glance. They are all states in which our imagination can dwell. So again, it is overflowing into the physical world, and it keeps happening over and over again. But not until we direct it with a purpose will we experience this for ourselves. That is what you are called upon to do. Go and do it. Put your imagination into action so you can unleash the most wonderful visions and most wonderful emotional states in existence, and watch what happens to your physical life. I cannot describe what happens. Everyone dreams of different stuff, but you will agree one day on my point. It all feels wonderful. It feels like I discovered something I had lost for a long time, and we all did. We lost it from the moment the physical universe came into being. Imagine how long ago that was. For it was when the physical universe came into being, consciousness started to come into being and direct itself outwardly and become hypnotized by the very thing it is observing. If you're not ready to do all I just suggest you do, then approach this differently. Simply learn to fall in love with your own dreams and goals in life. That is how you will live a wonderful life, and one day it is my understanding that your heart calls out to you and look for the truth behind all of creation itself. Until then, we must learn to achieve our earthly goals so we can detach ourselves more and more from negative states of the mind through the realization of these wonderful dreams and goals. Did others tell you when growing up your dreams were weird and or stupid? Many have had this experience to some extent. Forget all of it and forgive all of them. Turn back to your dreams and fall in love with what you want, and it will be expressed in your life. This much I do know. If you love someone, you can only see the good in them. If you love your goals, you can only believe in its achievement, and that sort of love will melt away all of your doubts so you can finally realize the very things you desire to experience on earth. We all have to go through these states, so never condemn yourself for what you desire. If you desire to have or do something, go and do it. If you don't, it only causes more and more frustration. Instead of looking at the reasons why it can't be done in your life, fall in love with your dreams so that love puts you beyond these doubts. Would you constantly doubt the one you truly love? No. So learn to fall in love with all of your heart's desires. Ultimately, that is all you really can do, for even if you fail to achieve the dream physically, you don't die to your own awareness of existing, so you will always get another chance at it until you have succeeded. Now seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all things are added unto you. This is true, for it should dawn on you that everything on the physical side of life depends on the imaginary state in which I dwell. So again, it's another way of saying, if you find the essence of what you want within your own imagination, fall in love with it. Well then, on the physical side of life, things are added unto you. We would simply call it an improvement in our results, for that is what it all boils down to. The achievement of anything is just a result, nothing more, nothing less. but it was added onto your physical being after you connected with the imaginary state inside your consciousness. This is the important part to grasp and meditate upon, until you can sense the truth in it.